Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Ashley, and today I am joined by business leader Deno Anagnost. I know him from my time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he is currently the Chief Revenue Officer for AthleteScore, an NIL platform helping college athletes connect with brands. He is also very active in the community, a true fundraising champion, having personally raised close to $200,000 to benefit the National Pediatric Cancer Foundation over the last several years. And when you think of good people, you think of Deno. He sees the best in you, he brings the best out of you. And if you know him, you know that he's always in your corner, and I am grateful to experience that. So, Deno, welcome to the podcast. Thanks so much for being here.
No, I really appreciate you reaching out to me and excited to chat with you.
Me too. So this podcast is really an open space. It's about our journeys and stories of perseverance and overcoming, and you definitely embody that. You were diagnosed with cancer in the middle of your 20s and then battling, beating it, and pursuing your dream of working in sports, starting in the NBA with the then Charlotte Bobcats and then spending over a decade with the Bucks. So let's kick off there. If you could take us through a bit of that journey for you and your mindset through adversity early on in your life.
Yeah, so it's funny. I look back at that time of my life when I was diagnosed with cancer, and that being like the start of like the Deno I am today. It really, really woke me up. I always remember like was diagnosed. I came back from the doctor's office. My mom had already found out from my dad, and she was like totally, just extremely worried, like a mother would be, and crying. And I like had to just kind of get away. I went in like the bathroom, and I had this like 15-minute sort of freak out / conversation with myself in the mirror, where I really sort of started to ask myself some really tough questions. And at that moment, I really like remember getting mad at myself. I was like contemplating what people would say at my funeral, and they would have said like, Deno was a really fun guy. He bought like a huge round of shots at the end of the night, and he was really fun to hang out with. Like, there was just a lot left on the table, and I just remember thinking like, and honestly admitting to myself that I hadn't given my all in any real area of my life for a really long time, probably since like high school sports. And I walked out of that bathroom like a completely different human being, and that was like the biggest blessing I think I ever could have received, was getting cancer in a really messed up way. And then just going through the surgeries and the treatments and all the gross things you got to do to like get through all that was kind of like my way to prove to myself that I could do anything and I could be the best at anything. And some of my friends were like, they'd like reach out to me and be like, man, I would have used this to just like hang out for the next 6 months, or like be really like take a step back, but you're like going after it so hard, and you're really inspiring me by the way you're acting. And I was like, wow, I can really actually have an influence on others just by how I show up. And that's like kind of been my thought process like every day through my career since then.
That's so good. Just thinking about what you said about being able to influence others by how you show up and being challenged with something that you don't imagine could ever happen to you as a young person, like ever, right? I don't think we ever think that those kind of, we never want to get those kind of diagnosis and things like that, right? Where you immediately, your thought process goes to like, the end of your life. Like, it's just that, in our human nature, how can you not? And making that choice to show up and have that, attitude and mentality that you're going through it, and being able to have a vision, for the future. And now how that, like, thinking back on that time, and how, after all of those years of what you've gone through, can you take us through how that has then kind of shaped, because you've had a very, lengthy career, and you've impacted a lot of people along the way.
Yeah, I think so. Like right away, I was like, okay, I was selling and writing television commercials for a TV station in Flint, Michigan, and I had like at that time, like I really wanted to be a copywriter. That's like really what I wanted to do. I wanted to write like Super Bowl commercials. Like I thought that was like what my passion was. And then once I started like writing the commercials that I had like no control what they were ended up going to be about, like I was like, this isn't it. But when I actually made a sale, the hair on the back of my neck stood up. So I had to like switch and be like, if I'm going to be in sales, I need to sell sports. It can't be the Ellen DeGeneres show in the morning news. So I, when I took a huge pay cut, moved to Charlotte, didn't know anyone, I was so like all in. Like I had there really was no backup plan. Like it was like I was living in this like really dirty, tiny dungeon of apartment right in uptown Charlotte. I still have a photo of it as just like a motivator, and it was like I was just sort of all in. There was no like I wasn't gonna fail. Like that wasn't possible. So I don't know. That's kind of like how I'm wired. Like there's no like it's an on-off switch. It's not like there's no dimmer. Like I'm just on or off. And so I don't know if that's like the healthiest way all the time, but I'm like that's just how I'm built, I think. And so I worked for a really bad basketball team, and it was extremely hard. Everyone in the city hated the organization. They hated, there was a lot of like negativity around the owner, and how the stadium was funded and built and everything was just like it was not good, and the team stunk. So my big like one of the big things I learned right off the bat was like, you control the controllables, and you can control what excuses you give, but also what excuses you take. I think people are gonna like, so like there's always an excuse. Like right now I'm injured. I got a bum hand, and I'm a avid golfer. I'm trying to get better, and it's like really frustrating right now because I like I can't play as much as I'd like to, but like there's also things that I'm not doing to like probably get better as fast as I could, and I'm just blaming the injury. So
Yeah.
and everyone's you'll get better, or like it's because you're hurt, being injured stinks or whatever. Blah, blah, blah. It's like it's yeah. There's always an excuse, but the ones you actually accept are the ones that really define you. So I wasn't going to use any excuses. I was just going to work harder and figure it out. And I think that mentality and mindset really stemmed from getting cancer, because I'd always tell people like they'd have some obstacle, or like there'd be an issue with a current employee, and they'd have some like minor thing that was like totally ruining their day. And sometimes I'd tell them like, you're gonna die, right? You know, one day you're gonna die. Like just to remind them,
Yeah.
it's not the end of the world. Just suck it up and do the work. Like figure it out. So that was a big kind of like MO for me throughout my entire career in pro sports was you never win by whining. You're just like if you're just gonna complain and whine and make excuses like that's not how you win. You win by overcoming the obstacles and lifting the trophy, having the results, and that's where and like looks. Sometimes you don't hit the goal, right? But if you show up every day and you give it your absolute best, you're gonna sleep really good at night knowing like you did everything you could to um, you know make your organization better, make yourself better, and people are gonna like pat you on your back on the way out.
For sure. I mean, it makes me think a lot about taking our power back and the choices that we have. Like when we think about, excuses, there's always something that we can find to complain about. And, I don't like listening to friends complain about stuff, over and over and over and stay in that same situation. And so I have to check myself. Am I doing that? Or what choices do I have in this? Am I going to continue to show up and to be here? Or am I going to make a change? And so I think that's really powerful, I think, is just, you know, how we choose to show up is something that we have control over. So I love that. There's a importance of the people that, we surround ourselves with and who we are allowing ourselves to be influenced by, because there's influence everywhere, but we have the power to choose what we consume in that. So how the people in your life and your career, how significant has that been for you?
Yeah, I mean, been like I've been blessed more than anybody by having like ridiculously talented, passionate, and giving people in my life that have influenced my life like more than anybody. I feel like I'm like the richest guy in the world in that regard. So and that didn't always it wasn't always like people that like I worked for or worked with. Like when I started, the guy that like got me into sports, this guy, his name's Greg Economou. He's like the head of all revenue now, I think, at the Phoenix Suns, and he was like the most inspirational guy you could work for ever, and taught me a ton on just mindset and what sales was all about. He's real sort of big picture philosophical person, very similar to how I am, and then guys like Mark Jackson, Jake Reed, real instrumental like early on. Nick Barlage was a guy that I used to joke around, like I used to try and beat him in the office every day. I'd get in at 6:45 and he'd be already in there. I don't know, we were sort of really all just consumed about being the very, very best, like the best in the world. And I think when you find something that you can be the very best at, it's extremely motivating to be around others that are also pushing that standard. That's like, hey, it's not about being better than you. It's like trying to be better than everyone. Like, how can we be world class? And that's like how I tried to build our teams at the Bucks. That why like everyone's first day they got the vision.
For sure.
When they interviewed, the vision was like said. It was like, we want to be benchmarked as the very best sales and service team in pro sports. That
Totally.
was it, period.
Yeah.
And like, so when that's always top of mind, like that's what you're pushing for. And I learned that through a lot of different people. And that was from just being surrounded. And then, when I was early on as a manager, I was, there was a family friend of mine that I grew up with. His name is Tony Knuckles, and awesome name, I know.
Yeah, I was like, that's a great name.
He was one of the very first hires at Rocket Mortgage, and he's still there. And he like was a really, really big influence on my life, on how we create culture, and creating these things on just real specific items that like create action and like sort of rules to live by in like a business perspective. And that was that was so instrumental to me early on as a manager, and really just helped me like get inspiration and build my own sort of repertoire. That Rocket Mortgage had these isms. I stole some of their isms and like made them more sports related, that would like really have an impact towards like how we do things. And I you know fast forward, he was the one that introduced me to student athlete score, um, and is the reason I'm here at this new career opportunity now. So really coming full circle.
Yeah.
And it's like truly, like I'm just again super blessed to be around, have been around really, really amazing human beings.
For sure. And I love that, like just how things come full circle. And just when you think about those relationships in your life over time, we're like, that's why I think it's so important in the relationships that we have and that we build and that that we keep and that are genuine in those ways. And, you never know later on in life how things kind of come back around. You're like, it kind of blows your mind. I've seen it happen in my life too. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Like I knew that person from like 15 years ago, and now fast forward now, and it's like you have helped me in this. You know what I mean? It's just it's really awesome. I want to go back to team culture and dynamics of a workplace. So I think it's these environments that we're in and that we're part of that also translates into other areas of our life, including interpersonal relationships. So what are some of the things that you believe need to be prioritized to create healthy and thriving cultures?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that, so a name I didn't mention, but probably the most integral person in my life was Ben Milsom, who you work for. And I think one of the things that he like really pushed on us was like to like not be afraid of confrontation, and also to like confront him. So like if we believed in something, like he really didn't care if he was wrong. Like he didn't care. Like he truly actually wanted to be wrong. He loved like us figuring out what the problem was, and he didn't care who was right or wrong. He just cared about what was right.
Yeah.
And that was, and I think that's such a big part of business where people are, whether they're, I don't know, they're sensitive, or they take things like personal, and it becomes like a, I don't know, a defense mechanism, or like they shy away from confrontation because they don't want to like you know tell someone they screwed up, or hey, this is actually a mistake. But like when you actually get it right, that's where like the wins happen and business can move forward. And there's going to be 5 million other problems in 2 seconds. Like it's just another thing that there's endless, what I like to call poop sandwiches. You gotta tackle the obstacle that's in front of you. You can't just shy away from it. And it gets bigger the more you shy away from it. So for me, it's all about just um, you know figuring out what the right answer is, and not being like too worried about hurting someone's feelings if they end up being wrong. And that sometimes you gotta have really tough conversations. And I think similar to the tough conversation I had with myself when when I was diagnosed with cancer, you gotta have tough conversations with people in the workplace, and people don't want to hear things sometimes, or and it's a lot of it's how you message it, but you gotta like put it out there, because that's how business gets done.
Yeah, and I think that's too what actually builds trust over time.
100%.
is those having those hard conversations. And if there is something, that's an issue that needs to be brought to the table, working through that. And it's only going to strengthen those relationships and, and everything else from there. And yeah, I think it's really interesting that you share that, because leaders or people or those who we look up to in leaders, we perceive, certainty and confidence in the decision making and how it is that, they're approaching the situations. But what you're saying too is like actually, having that permission to be wrong and to come, have these conversations and work through that and find what's right is actually how you can continue to build off of that. So I think that's really, it's really encouraging.
For sure. And that's how trust gets built. Like,
yeah.
If you're basically lying to someone because you're not confronting them on their shit, excuse my language,
yeah.
they're gonna be, you're lying to them.
Right.
And there's this like sort of fake relationship. And,
right.
I think if you are an honest person, you're gonna have those conversations. You're gonna do it with a kind heart. And my mom and dad, taught me the golden rule, and it's like so important in business. It's just to treat others like you'd wish to be treated. And like I want someone to tell me if I got a booger hanging out of my nose.
Right. Like you got the spinach in your teeth. You're like, be a good friend tells you that.
Yeah, 100%. And like, if you're doing something messed up at work, like someone needs to, like, if they care about you, they're gonna
totally
they're gonna confront you on it. And I think that's where like, that's where great leaders are. And there's some that aren't yet. Just they want to dance around topics and not get right into the nitty-gritty of things.
For sure. It's so important. And I know I appreciate that in people, that kind of tough love, because at the end of the day, it's like, wow, I need that. At first it kind of stings. So you're like, ouch, like that was harsh. But later on, I go back and there's certain moments and, stories and people that have, said things to me that I'm like, well, I really needed to hear that. And that's actually been so transformative for me. And those relationships, have sustained over time. It's because of those conversations. So I think it's really good. I have a question. So I think this is really interesting. You've come out and said that you have a new favorite interview question for salespeople, and that is to describe your favorite leader that you've worked for. And I love this question. I think it's really interesting. It got me thinking a lot. And I want to ask, what insights do you feel like this provides about a candidate that's important?
Yeah, I think it provides a lot. It tells a lot about how they want to be coached, or how open to coaching they are. It also can flush out maybe some BS in regards to maybe what they've just said about their current situation, etc. But I think it gives a lot of insights in their mindset on their coachability, their openness to learning, likely their work ethic too. If they're going to be someone that is wants to be pushed really hard. There's someone that probably really wants to work really hard, and is open to that. But some people aren't. If they want like this, like sometimes like a real inspirational or like fun friend as a leader, I think they, that can say some things as well, right? So I think there's a lot that it can uncover based on what they say, and I think it's a really good interview question.
Yeah, and I love that. I bring it up too because I think it's those kind of questions as well that we can actually ask ourselves, not just in this interview process, but even like when you're thinking about who you want to be, or kind of, people who you look up to and things like that, like asking these kind of questions and really thinking about it and reflecting, I think it helps you to, it reveals, things about yourself as well that you can continue to, work on in those ways. And so I think I think it's like in the questions that we ask that can bring so much out of us and out of other people. And so I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, it's a great interview question. It's actually just a great question to ask yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you're leading people, like, are you the leader that you just described?
Right.
You know,
For
if
sure.
not, then maybe you should change how you're leading your team.
Yeah, totally. So I think that there is also sometimes, I think there's maybe this misconception around, to be a leader, you have to be in some type of leadership position, right? But something that I've learned, and that I think about and that I consider in that is that you can lead right where you are. So what's your encouragement for, young people that, maybe they're just getting started in their careers, right? And like they have people that they look up to, like yourself, right? And they want to, be the kind of leader that you are. What are some of the things that people can do, right where they're at to lead others?
Yeah, I think the easiest answer, and this first thing you got to do is lead by example, right? So you're, again, controlling what you can control, how you show up. Are you ready to work when you show up? Are you getting after it? Are you doing your job the best of your capabilities? I think that's like the first thing. And when you start doing that and doing all the extra, when everyone's cutting corners and you're not, then all of a sudden you're someone that people are going to be like, I'd work for this person, or that person's the leader here. And when I first got to the Buccaneers, after a few months of doing that, I'll never forget Nellie Langland. She's the vice president of customer service. She reached out to me, and we used to have these, like at the end of the day, we'd have a daily objection meeting, and I would sit down with her, and we'd be like, okay, what'd you hear on the phone? What were the objections that were said? All right, and we practice how to overcome them. And we had those meetings, and then it turned into like 3 or 4 people would join. And next thing I know, I'm like having like almost like a training every day at the end of the day. And a lot of that stemmed from people coming up to me and asking, like, hey, I need your help. Can you, I'm looking for assistance here. And I would be like, I'm sorry, I can't right now because I'm doing my job. But, at the end of the day, well, let's wrap. And so that's how those conversations happened. And wasn't really looking, pushing for those. They came to me because of how I just brought it every day. So I think that's the biggest, my biggest piece of advice for people that are, whether they want to be a manager or they want to increase their leadership influence. It's just by, not cutting the corners, not taking the excuses, doing the work, and being the very, very best that they possibly can be. And I don't care how old you are, I don't care how much experience you have, you're going to be able to influence others if you bring it like that every single day, and you 100% will.
Yeah, I think it's so cool how, those calls started to organically just grow. And I think or more people joining in that. And I think that speaks to how, just to your point, how you show up does matter, and people are paying attention to that, and they are seeing that. So, even if someone isn't telling you hey, I like what you're doing, I want to be part of it. It's people are paying attention, and that, has a ripple effect. Really curious about this. So you were with the Bucs for over over a decade, and then you went through a bit of a transition period after that until you started into this new role with Athlete Score. So can you speak a little bit to that, and what were some of those things that what did you do during that time, and what inspired you to get into this new role that you're, with Athlete Score and working in NIL and all of that?
Yeah, so when I was let go at the Bucs, it was like, first of all, it was completely out of left field. I did not see it coming. It rocked me really hard, and I didn't have, I needed some time, and so I spent like 3 or 4 months where I just kind of licked my wounds a little bit, and I did all the things I promised myself I'd do if I had a situation like that. I went and actually saw a therapist. I started doing yoga. I really started to probably do the things I should have been doing all along. And I started taking care of myself. And I put a lot of emphasis on why am I here, and what do I want to accomplish next? So my phone was ringing a lot with friends that were offering me jobs or recruiters, and opportunities to go back to exactly the same thing I was doing, go work for an NBA team, an NHL team, etc. in ticketing. And it just didn't at the time seem like exciting at all. And I was in a financial situation where I could take a little risk and say, hey, let's try and lift something completely off the ground, and take less money up front, earn some equity in something, and try and make something not completely my own, but take ownership of something.
For sure.
And so it was, there was a couple startups that were that I interviewed with, and I just didn't really see the vision of the technology and how it could impact the sports space. And this one was a lot different, and the CTO is and co-founder is extremely brilliant and has a really good business sense, and the co-founder and CEO is extremely just driven, and he isn't afraid to get out there from a business development perspective. So I knew right off the bat it's a really good combo, and with my relationships in the sports space, and I felt this is a perfect opportunity for us to kind of combine forces and try and develop something that could be really meaningful for the space. And every customer we've signed, we've built really good relationships with them, and they've actually helped us change the technology to benefit them even more. So hopefully we get it to a point where it's a must-have in the space, and not a nice-to-have. So we're working really hard at that, and it's it is not a 9-to-5.
Yeah.
The startup world is definitely a lot more work than even working for a sports team.
For sure.
So it's been it's been a lot of fun, and I've been more I've been sort of reinvigorated in this new role, and have a lot of optimism on where it's going to go.
If someone's looking at your career path and seeing, your long tenure with the Bucs and just looking at that career, and then may have that question like, why go and do something like this where there is a little more uncertainty in that way, or like it's a risk jumping into this, but there is so much, from what you just shared, like what makes the risk worth it? I think it's the possibilities that can come from that, and obviously having the wisdom that you have and knowing the position that you're in and what your capacity is to do that. I think it's really encouraging, and that's something that can inspire others as well that may be in those positions or stepping into a startup. I've personally worked for a couple of startups in the past, and it's been interesting. There's nothing like it, I think, in that. And from the outside looking in, people have questions, and they're like, why would you? There's it's more secure over here, but at the same time, there's things that I've learned in that are just invaluable that now I can take and run with wherever. And so I imagine, in your time, just in starting in that, you're already experiencing some of that, right? And it's unconventional, but it's also like there's so much upside and possibility, and I think that's really exciting.
Yeah, I think the big thing is like, and I go back like to your first question about like what I learned and like my mindset with cancer. It was like, you have to define your own success. And I think that is like a huge problem with people.
Yeah.
Especially as they get more success in their career, they start thinking about what other people would think.
Yeah.
Oh, like if they took this job, what would people say? Like, I wonder what this guy would think if I, and I even fell guilty of that.
Totally.
And then I think at the core of it, you gotta define what success looks like for you. And if Ashley's happy, healthy, and living the life that you want to live, and you go to bed at night and everyone's got their their worries and struggles and things they're dealing with, but if in your heart to heart that you're doing the right thing every day, like, and you're treating people well, like, you're gonna be fine. Everything's gonna be okay. And I'm a big believer that if you start to like let other people define what success looks like for you, you're just gonna become this like fake version of yourself. And it might be a really like on the outside successful version, but you could be completely empty inside.
Totally.
And broken. And so I really urge people to keep asking themselves those tough questions on what success looks like for them, and understand what do they want out of life, and that will I think provide you a path of like what the next step to take is, and then you got to just take that next step and learn and grow as much as you can in that new vein. And that's exactly what I'm doing now, is trying to tackle a completely new space, and I'm learning a ton every single day. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's so good. I love that. I appreciate you being here, Deno, and having this conversation and kind of taking us through your journey and insights and perspectives. It's things that you share that people like myself can consume and really think about and consider and challenge my own ways of thinking and my approach to things, and it's that kind of influence. I think it goes far beyond. So I really appreciate you. I'm grateful that we stay connected, and for you, your support and encouragement towards me and my journey as well. So thank you for that and all you do.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks for the time today and you're an absolute rock star, and the world's reviewing it. So appreciate it. Great catching up with you.
Likewise. Thanks, Deno.